Recording has started. And on that note, that seems as good an indicator as any for us to get started this morning. Good morning to everyone, and welcome to the Verizon Women Influencing Business Leadership Series. I'm Callie Boatwright. I'm the CEO and president here at the Greater North Fulton Chamber, and I'm very excited to bring you this fourth in our Women Influencing Business Leadership Series, and thank you all for joining us for this virtual event. Before we get into today's program, I do want to acknowledge and thank all of our Women Influencing Business sponsors. The Chamber is able to offer great events like today's session due to the generous support of our sponsors. I'd like to recognize our gold sponsor, Synovus, and our presenting sponsor, LexisNexis Risk Solutions. And as we honor today's sponsors, I especially want to recognize Verizon. We truly appreciate Verizon's support of the Greater North Fulton Chamber as the 2020 Women Influencing Business naming sponsor. We're fortunate to have with us two Verizon representatives today. It's my pleasure to introduce Jeff Earley, Senior Trainer for Learning and Development at Verizon Business Group, West Area. Jeff has been with Verizon for 16 years and has had various roles in retail and in B2B with the company. In his current position, Jeff supports B2B teams nationwide. I would also like to welcome Rachel Nagrowski, Business Sales Director for Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi for Verizon. Rachel has 20 years of industry experience, including management of outside, technical, inside, and retail sales teams, as well as support teams. Prior to her current role, Rachel was the Director of SMB in the Southeast region, Executive Director of the Southeast Market for Business to Business, and Director of Strategic B2B Sales in the Georgia and Alabama territory. Rachel and Jeff, thank you for being with us today. We're looking forward to your program, and please share with us your insights for today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having us, Callie. First, just kind of some housekeeping. A lot of you are probably new to our platform, Blue Jeans. Thank you so much for joining us on this. This is a Verizon-owned collaboration platform. When we were thinking about what is to come next, Verizon had the wherewithal to know that virtual communication via video was going to be absolutely paramount, and we acquired Blue Jeans. So if you guys have any questions at all, there is a chat pod over there to the right. You can also come off mute by clicking your little microphone button and control your camera as well, all over into that right panel. If you have also any questions, you can raise your hand, and Jeff and I will certainly be excited to either answer questions via the chat or just come right off mute. We want this to be super conversational. I am going to go ahead and share my screen with you. We have a very robust content, but I would say very simplistic in the regard to what we're going to be presenting via PowerPoint to you, because it's really about the conversation. And so I'm going to click over and let Jeff walk us through what we're going to be talking about today.
All right, thanks, Rachel. And again, thank you for having us. Excited to be here. So we're going to talk about the new normal. So you can see the purpose of our discussion on there. So virtual etiquette and readiness, the impacts on the way we do business, the way people we know do business, and what have we personally had to adjust? You know, it's been a change for all of us. So talking about the new normal, for me, I think about, you know, I started this role and I was probably about 5 months in, and I was at the point to where, you know, I was feeling good. I picked a lot of things up, and, you know, I was really made a solid transition. And then the next thing I know, everything is virtual. So no more face-to-face. So we had to scramble to get everything to go virtual, right? So it was definitely a learning curve. I think probably the biggest change for me was going from being on the road 70% of the time, and now I'm in my living room 100% of the time, right? So it's a little bit of a change, but that's okay. I think that there's a lot that we can get out of this, and we'll talk more about that. You know, we talk about, you know, whenever we talk about virtual now and the new normal, we talk about COVID and the impacts, and it's had some tough impacts, right? But as far as the virtual element, there's a lot that we can do with it. So we also want to focus on that. So having said that, Rachel and I felt that, the biggest underlying theme when we talk about going virtual is that we want to accomplish the same thing. So we're just going to be doing that in a different manner. But the etiquette, the understanding of the technology, those are really the most important themes that we felt. You have to put some more effort into it, but at the end of the day, we're trying to accomplish the same thing. So as far as the business itself, we're not completely reinventing everything. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Rachel, and she's going to talk about some etiquette.
So I think this is something that took a minute for everybody to adjust to. We've been home now almost 6 months. Some of us are back in offices maybe with reduced staff. Some of us are still full-time at home. Some of us maybe are having lunch meetings. So we're engaging in a different way when we were so much more face-to-face in the past. And so like Jeff said, we're trying to accomplish the very same thing. So it's really important that we establish kind of ground rules to how we conduct ourselves and etiquette. So for me, you can see that I have a virtual background on right now because that is my professional outward appearance. There are definitely staff meetings and chamber events that I'll attend that I'll have no virtual meeting and you'll be able to see, my plantation shutters behind me. But then there are times where we've got kids who are doing virtual learning and we have spouses or partners who are maybe working for other organizations. We have dogs barking, landscapers. Who knew that the lawn was mowed that many times a week in our neighborhoods? And so you might want that virtual background because you literally can take a call from your car and appear as if you are in your office doing business no differently. It's all about knowing your audience. Who are you talking to? What's the purpose of the meeting? And for purposes of, connecting and being real, virtual backgrounds definitely aren't necessary unless you're sharing something personal, a place you traveled to, your favorite sports team. That's not, a protocol. It's certainly acceptable just to have your camera on, but it does enhance the experience of that one-to-one conversation when you're over camera. And I think setting that expectation before your meeting, if it's a customer meeting, saying, hey, I'd like you to join us on the Blue Jeans platform. I'll have my camera enabled. Feel free to do the same for you. Or, hey, it's going to be an audio only call, 5 minutes on and off, whatever that is. When you have the face-to-face interaction, the etiquette is really important. One thing is that you'll notice that a lot of people haven't come accustomed to yet is talking to their webcam, because often they'll be reading maybe this direction because they're looking at a different screen, and really realizing when you're making eye contact, the people are through the camera. So that's a part about looking engaged, because you could be fully engaged in having a conversation, but you might be, looking at a spreadsheet. But are you trying to convey your message, making sure that you have that eye contact like you would have when you're face-to-face? Dressing appropriately. I think this is something that obviously I will be the first to say, have not put on a pair of button pants since like March. But the question is am I like a TV newscaster? Do I look right for what I'm on camera? Is my audience appropriate? It's certainly okay to, if it is, if casual in your office to be wearing, a branded t-shirt. We do that all the time. It just depends, again, knowing your audience, who you're meeting with, and is that dress appropriate? Would I show up to your office looking this way in this presentation? And then knowing your environment around you. Who else is on, the internet in your house? Are there better times for voice that's more conducive? Also knowing, is there a spot that's maybe has better Wi-Fi connectivity, cellular connectivity, a place where it's going to be quiet, where you're going to be able to concentrate? Or, like I said, taking it on the road, just being in your car, putting up a virtual background and being able to have that conversation. The check is critically important in each one of these kind of presentations we do. We dry run it, just making sure that, hey, your shared screen works okay. Okay, can you annotate here? We if you've practiced, if you're breaking people out into breakout rooms, this application has that capability. Did you practice putting people into breakout rooms, pulling them back? Do you have a moderator to be able to have people muted so you're not constantly asking people to go on and off mute? And then how do you prep for this meeting? Is the same way that you would prep for, a face-to-face meeting, to be able to have potential questions, your agenda, the things that you want to accomplish. So much of that is the very same, just making sure that we're as impactful when we're virtual as we are face-to-face. And put yourself in the other person's shoes. Think about you're on the other side of that camera, and you're either listening to the presentation or it's an interaction, and do you feel like that person put the time in, that they're prepped, that they're ready, that they're fully engaged, that they're not, maybe looking at their phone? It's the same way that you would be as if you were sitting in a conference room across from them. And I think that etiquette just comes from really understanding what type of meeting it is, what you're wanting to accomplish, and then having that open dialogue about, hey, I kind of everybody's starting to multitask. If you're trying to bring your team back together, can I get 3 minutes of your time? Everybody just like solely focus on the one thing. Let's get this hammered out, and we can kind of move on to the next. And it just depends on whether or not, it's an internal or external conversation. We'll get into having difficult conversations, having interviews. They're all different types of scenarios that we're used to being face-to-face for, that this is our new face-to-face. So with Jeff, I will turn it over to you to talk about how you lead your teams in a virtual manner.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So the camera expectation. So a couple of items come to mind with the camera. So first off, it's great to get that FaceTime with your team. Obviously, it starts the engagement right away. It's just as Rachel pointed out. This is our face-to-face, right? So the other thing it makes me think of that's helped improve, having everybody on camera, is that it prohibits, or I don't want to say prohibits, it's not going to completely stop it, but it's going to kind of curb multitasking a little bit, right? So now, we're on the phone more than ever. We're either on a conference call or webinar or something. There's always something going on, and everybody multitasks. I do it. I'm trying to multitask when I'm talking to somebody that I want to talk to. So it really helps curb that, right? So I found that when you're on camera with somebody, they might fire off a text here and there, something like that, and that's okay. But I think it definitely engages the conversation more, takes away some of those distractions that would be there. When you're talking to somebody and you're getting the yeah, okay. Oh, good. They're not really fully engaged and paying attention. So I found that's helped the conversation a little bit. So that's the first thing I thought of. The opportunity to connect. So I think it's important that we realize that it doesn't have to be all business, right? So as leaders, we don't want to be best friends with the people that we lead. But at the same time, I do believe that it helps to show that human element, right? To show that, behind it, all the hard work that you do, and your game face, that you're a real person, just like they are. So it goes both ways. I would say vice versa. They need to get to know you, and you need to get to know them a little bit. So it's a little bit different. You can't go down, a few cubes in your office and see how somebody's doing or see how their family's doing. So it's important that you still do those things as a leader. You want to be there for your team, and don't be afraid to set up some time just to reach out and just talk to somebody and see how they're doing, just as you normally would. So time management. So this one is a very important and it's a tricky one also. So you don't want to be the overbearing micromanager that that is trying to make sure that every single minute their employees are doing this, and 5 minutes later you're doing that. I don't personally, the way I look at it, I think that a lot of leaders across a lot of businesses really focused and rightfully so when we went to the virtual setting. Everybody was afraid, are my employees going to be on task? Are they doing what they're supposed to? And they really tried to micromanage that calendar, right? So me, again, personally, I would say, continue to manage to the behaviors, or coach to the behaviors rather, manage to your priorities, keep steering the ship in the right direction. But ultimately, is the right work getting done at the right time? So that's the world according to Jeff. So I probably should have asked Rachel the right way to do that and just agreed with her. But that's my thoughts on the way to manage that. But time
No,
management.
I think you're spot on in terms of like the connection piece too. That I think that there's so much that we're missing from the world we knew in 2019 and early 2020 of just being like, hey, how was your weekend? How was your kid's soccer game? What trip did you take? What are you excited about?
Right.
And so allowing that space into your meetings, because that's about building culture, and culture doesn't necessarily always come from the top down, but role modeling that. If you skip that, you become very robotic and it can feel very disconnected. And we all know that people quit managers, they don't quit businesses. And if they don't feel like they're a part of something bigger, then it's not worth their time, and they could work for any other organization via webcam. So really making sure that they feel the same way they did when we were face to face.
Right. Yeah. So with that, the time management piece, definitely you do have to remember that you can expect what you inspect, right? Just like the old saying says. So again, do stay on top of those things. Utilize the calendars. Make sure that you have access to your employees' calendars. That stuff remains. It's still critical. All right. So virtual whiteboard. So looks like I actually had this here on twice. But virtual whiteboard. So really, what I'm getting at here is virtual tools. So one element of that is the virtual whiteboard. So just an example of a leader that I've worked with. So his team, when they're working on a big sales deal, they like to get together as a team, into a small office and whiteboard, put everything up there, and it serves as kind of a two-part thing. So you're working towards the goal, right? You're working on the project, working on getting it to the finish line, but it also serves as a type of almost like a bonding moment or a team building moment, if you will. So this stuff is important too, and there's a lot of tools that are available to you virtually. So in fact, BlueJeans, the platform that we're using right now, has a virtual whiteboard, and so just an example to call out to utilize and leverage those tools that are available to you. Continue to meet. So this is important. If you've had daily huddles or weekly meetings, keep doing those kinds of things. So there's no reason for that to go away. And honestly, these meetings are more important than ever, right? So it's good to get that pulse check with your team throughout the week. All those all those meetings that you had, there's a reason why you have them. So definitely important to keep that up. Don't let that slide. Don't let your team get too disconnected from you. Make things fun. So there's little things you can do. It can be cheesy. It can be a cheesy award ceremony. It can be games that you're playing, but make it fun for your team. If only for a few minutes. Try to make it lighthearted and kind of take their mind off the day and just enjoy it and have them. I think it helps them realize that, hey, I still have my team that we work together, but we laugh, we have fun, we enjoy life, right? So I think it's easy to forget that in a virtual setting sometimes if we really don't make an effort. So make things fun, make it lighthearted. And that's all I have as far as leading teams virtually. So whiteboarding, again, I had in there twice, so I already covered that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Rachel here.
Yeah, so conducting virtual interviews, there are lots of people right now who are being onboarded for roles and they've never met someone in the organization face to face. They're being mailed out a laptop, a webcam, and they're being brought into the team entirely virtually. This has become the new norm. So I think that looking at the interviewee side of interviewing, how to prep, how to be prepared, one, that tech check. Don't wait until the interview to make sure that whatever platform they're using works with whatever operating system you are. Ask whoever is setting up the meeting to run just, even just to set a spot for you to try it on your own. Make sure that you feel comfortable with it so that you bring your best, that all of these extenuating circumstances aren't impacting the way that you're going to deliver your message. If you're the interviewer, setting the expectation of, hey, we have an hour to speak. This is, the kind of the format that we'll use. Here's who'll be on the call. Our expectation is that you are on camera. Our expectation is that you're able to share your screen and that you have potentially a business plan that you're going to share with us. The same way that when they would come into your office, that you would let them know what that time would look like that they're going to spend with you. Making sure that you prep if you are the interviewee in the same way, to be able to honestly maybe even cold call into the business that you're interviewing with, if it's talking to somebody frontline in the call center and asking about, hey, what are some of the best things and or worst things about what's been going on since COVID started in your organization? What do you really love about your job? Calling the peers that you potentially know who are going to be a part of that organization, doing your due diligence. Obviously, if you're internal, you have a huge upper hand because you can go through your directory and be able to find people and you can use their connections. But also if you're an external potential hire, to show that you have the motivation and tenacity to do that due diligence, not just looking at the webpage and looking at LinkedIn and the person that you're going to speak to, but finding other people in the organization who can provide real insight. So when you show up to that interview, you look different than every other candidate you might be competing against. You're showing them that your level of interest is above and beyond, and that demonstrates your work ethic. Because there are some things that you're just not going to be able to show via webcam that you would normally face to face. But remember that you should feel comfortable in the interview, to gesture the way you normally gesture, to use your tone, to use your inflection. Don't allow yourself to get stuck to a script potentially because you are using this as a crutch. It's really about harnessing the ability to make yourself stand out. A lot of people haven't figured out this world and this environment, and you actually have the opportunity to say, well, look, if I can come across as this, three-dimensional via webcam and in a virtual manner, think about how charismatic and motivational I could be, when I'm actually face to face. And so you can really harness that as an advantage. Also taking ownership and being able to say, they say, do you have any questions? And they haven't necessarily asked for a business plan. But you're like, hey, let me take a minute and let me share with you some accomplishments, and being able to share your screen, to whiteboard, whatever it is, just to showcase your technical abilities, but also the acumen when it came to preparing for the interview, that you had thought about this role differently, and bringing that same energy. Like I said, to make sure that you don't kind of think back and feel like this is a totally relaxed environment. It's still an interview. You want to bring your personality. The way that I always kind of describe interviews to my team, I'm like, they're a little bit like our operational reviews, but with personality. Our operational reviews are definitely talking about the business. You're exposing the things you're good at, what you're going to work on, and your goals. Interview is very much the same way, but you want to bring yourself to that piece, and that you want to allow for that space to be able to talk about things that are truly important to you. Because as an interviewee, you're interviewing that organization as much as they're interviewing you. And you need to make sure that that's a good fit. So likewise, you're looking for the body language of the person on the other side of the camera. Are they want to be there? Are they listening to you? Are they really feel invested in this process? And that is a huge piece of what's going on right now. I mean, so many people have been out of work, are back in work, are doing different types of roles, are starting their own businesses, that we really need to make sure that when we can't be face-to-face, we're as impactful in this scenario to be able to benefit ourselves and benefit our families. For interviews, 2 screens is really nice from the standpoint of being able to have your scenarios. I mean, in most interviews, you're going to be asked for, tell me about a time when. And it's going to be like, okay, tell me about a time when. And you have 10 or 15 scenarios kind of off to screen number 2 there that you can plug in anywhere. Tell me about a time when, something didn't come the way that you wanted it to go. Okay, I can plug in this. Tell me about a time when you had a really hard contract negotiation. Tell me about a time where you had a really hard employee situation that you had to manage through. Whatever those are, that you have, 10 or 15 kind of stock answers that are filled out in your mind, that are colorful, that can fit for different situations. Because really what interviewing is about, it's translating your story. And it's showing that I am a full, well-rounded person who's not only going to be able to execute on the job, because that's table stakes, but that I'm going to be able to bring culture, energy, charisma, work ethic to your organization. And essentially, I'm going to be a puzzle piece that you were missing. And so if you can communicate that over a virtual conversation, then you've nailed it. So Jeff, let's go into talking about developing skills to manage difficult conversations.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking, I like everything that you pointed out. I was thinking with the 2 screens, it's definitely an advantage because we're still looking, to your point, for those nonverbal cues, right? What somebody's facial expressions, are they dressed to impress? What are they bringing to the table? How ready are they? What's their posture? Everything, all those things that you typically look for, you're still looking for them. So to kind of tie in everything that you said, I think that's great. So we want to make them as comfortable as we can, so that way the true them really shines through. And I was kind of in my mind making fun of myself because I don't know if anybody has picked up on this, but my speaking voice sounds like I'm narrating like a National Geographic special or something. So I have to focus and really make sure I have some emotion and inflections in there, because it's not that it's not there, but it just sometimes it can come across, and it definitely did when I made the transition with training, doing everything virtual. I had some of my peers saying, "Jeff, you were so flat, like you've got to change some tone in your voice." So some fun that I went through that I was thinking along with your discussion there. So developing skills to manage difficult conversations. So the first thing that it's difficult for a reason, right? 90% of the time, difficult conversations are likely about delivering some type of corrective action or trying to correct some type of behavior. So they're difficult. They're difficult for a reason. So I think that the confidence piece also, I think it ties into empathy in a way, because you want to be confident in yourself, but you don't want to be so confident that there's there's no real you, no real emotion behind it. Emotion might not be the right word, because you don't want to get emotional during difficult conversations, but you want the real you to shine through. And a lot of times what will happen is we look at the computer screen as kind of a safety blanket, right? We look at it as something that, we don't have that person physically in front of us. So we kind of have this false sense of, okay, well, I can say whatever I want, however I want, and we're just, it is what it is. They're going to get it. We're having a discussion, but you really can't think of it that way. Like Rachel mentioned on the last slide was, you really have to put yourself in the other person's shoes. So really, really important that you remember that there's someone on the other side of this, and you have to wonder how they're gonna perceive that message. How is that going to make them feel? And having said that, you need to guide the conversation in that manner. How do you want them to take it? How do you want them to feel?
Yeah, Jeff,
so
I was
other
thinking
things
about all of the difficult conversations we've had since we've been in a work from home scenario, and starting with the beginning of just relaying the, hey, we're going to work from home and this is how this is going to work. And then our kids, being in the house with us if you have school age children. And then I think about the conversation about racial injustice, that my team, it was really imperative that we talk about it as a group, because it extends into your 8-to-5 job, that this is something going on in the world that we need to be able to talk about and share. Then I think about those are big life-changing conversations you're having. Then I think about those who had family members who fell ill to COVID and being able to
Right.
call them and talk to them. And that normally, where obviously you would normally give someone a hug, this is a really hard conversation. And so how do I convey my ability to care for that person in a virtual way? And then going back to, we still have businesses to run. And so, yes, having the performance conversation of, okay, this is where I need you to give more. And then being able to listen, of that person saying, okay, so I have, kids who are doing virtual school. I have all of these pressures on me from the standpoint of family obligations that I didn't have in the past. I don't have all of the help from my village, and so being able to hear that, and that empathy word is so important, to know that it's not just about, this is my message and this is what I want to convey because I'm trying to get something moved in the right direction, but what is standing in their way? What roadblock can I help them remove? How can I help them unwind it? What resources can I bring to this? And ultimately, the biggest thing on the slide that stands out to me, Jeff, is what you hit on, empathy.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a huge part. That's something that I think you just said it best. So I'll leave that alone. So thank you for joining on that piece. So we just talked about in the interview section about body language, about voice tone and inflection. So think about that for a second. So imagine a difficult conversation and how much tone can change. Like your voice tone and your voice inflection can completely change the meaning of a sentence. So definitely something to keep in mind. So having said that, practice that before you go live. So either you can practice with a peer, you can practice with your boss. Yeah, if no one's available, just say it. I've had times where I've just kind of paced around my house maybe and had just to hear myself how it came out, because sometimes we go to have these discussions and in our mind we might be thinking, I've done this 500 times. I don't need to tell myself how to do it. But you have to treat every situation as an individual situation, right? So you don't know necessarily how it's going to sound until it's out, right? And once you say it, you can't take it back. So definitely important. I would encourage everybody to have sort of a dry run in some manner or another if you can. Request their presence. Level setting. This is important. You want to give the person a subtle heads up, but let them know that the conversation is serious. It's a lot different if I call Rachel and say, "Hey, Rachel, can you chat at 4:00?" Yeah, I can. Okay, cool. Talk to you then. It's a lot different than if I'm saying, "Hey, Rachel, listen, really need to have a conversation with you. Are you able to be in front of your computer and on camera at 4:00 so we can have that discussion?" It's a lot different. So you're not trying to intimidate that person or scare them, but just sort of give them set the frame that it's not going to be a hi, how are you discussion. It's going to be more serious. So it's important to set that tone. Your state of mind. So I mentioned emotion earlier. You want the real you to shine through, but you never want to have those conversations. If you're upset about something, things happen, and we all of us we're human beings, so we can it's normal to feel upset or about a certain scenario, but you can't have those conversations. If Rachel is upset with me and we have a discussion, it doesn't do either one of us any good. If Rachel's really upset about it, we need to be just clear state of mind to where we move in and we're having a real conversation, a real dialogue, but specific factual examples. So we don't want to make the mistake that a lot of leaders make. It's actually a really common one, is that we don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Is probably the reason for it. But instead of saying specifically, Rachel, the reason that we're having this conversation is, yesterday when we were on that 3 o'clock call, you said X, Y, Z, and here's why it was inappropriate, and here's what I'm expecting in the future, right? Instead of saying these specific factual examples, a lot of times what you'll hear is they'll reach out to that employee and say, listen, Rachel, sometimes you have a tendency to be sarcastic. Sometimes you say things and it can be taken a different way. So, just watch what you say, or I heard it through somebody else. So that they might say, I heard from a few people, Rachel, that, you said this or you did this. So, listen, I didn't hear it, but, don't let that happen again. I don't want people bringing this stuff to my attention anymore. So it really does no good when you do that. So you really need to cite specific factual examples. All right. And then the last piece to this, I would say take notes. As simple as that sounds, it's a big miss. It's a big miss for a lot of people. So these types of discussions, you typically can't record them like we are right now with our Blue Jeans conversation. We all know we're being recorded and it's business as usual. But with these types of conversations, you typically are not going to be able to record these. So it's always important to protect yourself, and just as you are in the conversation, you're focused about, being factual, not how you feel, but just being completely factual about what took place, when it took place, be very specific and detailed, and make sure that you save those notes, of course. All right. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Kind of concluding on how do we go forward from here? Because the fact is that the world is not going to return to the exact same way it was before. I think about my personal schedule, being on the road at least 3 days a week, meeting customers, meeting employees throughout my territory, as well as, we're HQ'd out of New Jersey. And so much time spent in air travel, sometimes road trips, but that there were questions where does it need a trip now? Is that worth the money? Can I be in Mississippi 1 minute with, the chamber and another meeting and then talking to my boss in the third hour? Well, that wasn't possible in my old world. But at the same time, we sometimes find ourselves working more hours in the day too. We also have to be careful that we don't overextend ourselves because we can, because we don't have to physically be somewhere, and because there isn't as much going on in the world around us. We also have to protect our energy and our time and make sure that we're doing and taking care of ourselves, because technology can certainly enable us to be in many places at once, but at the same time, we have to have that time to disconnect and to be able to be grounded in that too. So I definitely want to give that caveat. But when it talks about the time that you're on, making the most of it, I think about the impact I can have. I would pull my team together for an all hands meeting, usually twice a year. So pulling people in who some had, flights, some had, 4+ hour drives, and then taking them out of their role for literally 2 days for probably about between the given days, 8 hours of content. Can I take that 8 hours of content and be able to put it in a virtual event and to be able to host an all hands where I have presenters switch on and off? We keep the pace really intense. We have polls, that we use in our tools. We have, Q&A and we have chat. Do we break them out to do different types of networking? Because that's always the biggest thing is you can't get back that networking time, because that face-to-face informal time that happens in business is what makes the world run. It absolutely has in the past, but how can we replicate that in our world moving forward? And I think that there are going to be a lot of individuals who make decisions differently moving forward, knowing what we know and how we've prospered during this time. So thinking about how you can change your business and change the lives of your employees to potentially to their benefit. Can they impact more customers more frequently? Can they reach the people that they need to talk to easily and be able to grab their time? And then also the cost savings is very real. When I think about what it costs to put on an all hands with, catering, open bar in the evenings, hotel rooms, flights, rental cars, all of those different types of things, external vendors maybe who are going to come, I can do that and probably bring in better vendors, probably bring in more interesting keynote speakers who might have a higher dollar tag associated with them, because I am saving on some of those ancillary items. That is a value add that I can give to my team in lieu of them being face-to-face. And then also, does it give people a different opportunity? I think about all of the time where we have asked people in all different organizations, and Atlanta is notorious for this, we're incredibly transient, to relocate. Well, you need to be in this city, you need to be in a hub city or whatnot to be able to perform this job. You need to have face-to-face time with this person who sits here, so you need to be there. Can we get the best talent anywhere in the country now? And it doesn't matter if you're 2 hours from the airport or, you're literally can be on a plane in 20 minutes and through a gate, just because that was a barrier. And now opening that up to finding the best possible talent who can serve our businesses and serve our customers, that's a really big win. It's exciting. And I think that it takes so many more people into the workforce. When we're talking about diversity and inclusion and allowing some of those things that held people back because either one, there were personal life choices that they were making that are absolutely respectable, or two, there were parameters that were non-negotiables for them. So can we really take what we have now and elevate it, because we have people who are that much more engaged, that excited to be part of our organizations, who may have never had the chance to before. And sharing that with your teams too, of saying, hey, from a standpoint of a benefit of working for our organization, here's the flexibility we can potentially offer through technology to allow you to have a different type of balance that I don't think prior to 2020, a lot of us knew. And we wore it like a badge of honor in a lot of ways. Of how many nights did I spend in hotels? How many miles did I get, flying around the country? And the question that I kind of looking at this year is, how much more of an impact have I made sitting right here? And what have I lost? What have I gained? And then evaluating that to figure out how I can tweak it and make it better. And that, yes, I definitely have the desire to be back face to face with people like most people do. We're social beings, and there isn't a direct substitute. But I feel like during this time we have learned so much, and those lessons can't be shelved and forgotten, that we've now got to take them and be able to bring it to the next level, so that, one, if we're ever in a scenario where we're totally locked down again, this is not a foreign concept and we can pull out the playbook and just run it again. But also that we can live in this hybrid world, that we can be more flexible, and that the things that we valued before, that a lot of us have had some very deep soul searching this year in terms of figuring out what matters most. And technology can enable so much. So let's harness it and utilize it. So Jeff and I really appreciate you taking the time, letting us talk to you. But I'm going to stop sharing because I haven't been able to see the chat. If there's any questions you guys want to come off mute and ask, feel free. Anything in the chat, you can put in there if you don't feel comfortable coming off mute. But we'd love to have a conversation to answer any questions.
Hey, Rachel, I did want to add to that last slide. I was thinking, you've made a lot of great points, and even you think about our working relationship. We work really well together, and we've actually never met. We've only met virtually. So there's a lot of good that's come of it. And I also think about my role as an outside sales rep when I was doing that, and I think about there's a lot that that the future or current sales folks out there can get out of it. I think about all those different bullet points that you had up there, and I was in the car probably 3 or 4 hours a day, and that's let's just say it was an 8-hour day. I would spend half of it on the road, right? And that's a reality. So I think about if I was able to take that element of it, to your point, you don't want to overextend yourself, but you think about what you could do with that productivity. I wouldn't have to focus, on this day I'm going to be here, on this day I'm going to be here, in this territory or that part of the territory. You have so much more of a reach, so you can plan completely differently, and that really resonated with me. Something, it's simple, but it's a real life example of making somebody's life easier and more productive. Because I'll tell you, I could have used it. We had certain platforms, not Blue Jeans, but certain platforms, right? So we could still do these types of meetings, but it wasn't really widely acceptable, right? And so going forward, we're going to have the opportunity to, just like you said, to have really a hybrid. Of course, it's not that I never want to see somebody face to face anymore, right? I miss being able to to shake hands and see people face to face, but the opportunities that open up, it's a big deal. So just wanted to add that in there.
Thanks, Jeff. Rachel, we've got a question in the chat box about if prospective leads are fairly open to meeting via Zoom or still prefer in-person, email, or phone.
So I think that it entirely depends on how far that person is physically from you, and then also kind of the mood of the country. Right now, my team is virtual through the year end. We have special parameters where we can get permission to operate in a safe way where we can meet with customers. But I think right now the preferred method is still virtual. And from a lot of what we've been talking to our customers about is they're not letting in external people into their buildings, even if they're bringing the workforce back, that they've got security measures in place to be able to make sure that they're taking temperatures, to make sure that they're monitoring, these pods and who they've been involved with, the same way that we're seeing our kids kind of monitored in school. So I think right now the preferred way is virtual. I think as 2021 comes, God willing, there's a vaccine and better ways to be able to cure COVID. I think that will lift and shift, and I think that there will be a premium put on face-to-face, and I think that it will become the richer communication, and that it will show the effort you put. I think that a lot of times it was just like, oh, let's meet next Tuesday. And it was just like, okay, I've got to get on a plane, I'll be there. And it wasn't necessarily, there wasn't a level of appreciation. It was just the way you did business. But now I think when someone is going to travel to see you and have that face-to-face, I do think you will get kudos and a little bit more respect for making that journey per se. But it depends on what the world looks like in the coming year.
Right. I had a personal question or a question regarding everything I've been reading. And of course, as the Chamber is talking to our members, a number of them are women who own their own business or are working like you are, Rachel, and balancing a lot of things at home. You mentioned flexibility, and I want to, obviously this is a women influencing business program, so I really want to drill down into the fact that a number of women that we're speaking to are potentially the ones who are taking a little time off or spending more time at home with their students and working around the studies and perhaps doing a larger share of those responsibilities, which may affect their performance, as you mentioned, or their ability to be promoted within an organization. Are you hearing that, or can you maybe speak to that? And Jeff, obviously you're in HR as well.
So for me, I have a 9 and a 5-year-old, and life-changing. I mean, to go to virtual schooling, to now be teacher, mom, businesswoman, it's a lot. And I think that it does call on, your village, where, okay, how can, and it was hard also because sometimes your village became virtual and couldn't actually be there to help with some of the tasks of like, oh, by the way, yeah, can you pick up this kid here or there or do this, whatnot. And I think that it's having that real talk amongst your team, that saying, not being like, hey, morning, everything's great, good, let's keep going, but saying, hey, I know that you guys are, we just got pulled back out of school, for example. I know that you have maybe are going, you've experienced some freedom, and now you're having kids pulled back. How are you doing? And I think it's as people who manage people, it's that empathy factor. It's understanding that you might be getting emails at midnight. You might be getting emails at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's about getting the work done and not necessarily the same 8 to 5. And I think we're also not going to be, or I hope we won't be as judgmental about the work routine in the way we were before, because I do feel like there's a double standard between men and women. Men leaving, early in the day to do whatever was okay. They have a commitment, but God forbid a woman has to leave to pick up a sick child or to be able to run to a doctor's appointment or whatever. It was like, oh, yep, she has other obligations other places. And I think that it's also having that conversation with your partner, your spouse, whoever, helps you raise your children. For those of you who raise children on your own, it's even that much harder. Hopefully that you have a very strong support system. If not, that you have people that you can that you can leverage, that you can pay for assistance. I mean, quite frankly, because nobody can do it themselves. And so I think that for us, being transparent and talking about it, for me, it means having someone who lives in with us. It's something that I never thought I would do or wanted to do, but to be able to travel as much as I do, and for my husband, who is also on the road equally as much as I am, it meant the difference for our son and our daughter to be able to do gymnastics and soccer and be able to excel in academics, because otherwise they wouldn't have had the quote unquote lifestyle that I grew up with, a stay-at-home mom. And that's what I wanted to give them, but knowing that at my best, I was going to be a mom who was working. So, and it's okay to have those conversations with your peers, with people who work for you. And I think the more you build that relationship and you open that door, it breeds loyalty and conversation and just a human connection, because we're all going through very similar things. And it's been hard to talk about in the past, but this is a very level playing field.
Yeah, I think it's the great equalizer in some ways, for across the board. So I would agree with you. One of the things that I've noticed as we have gone through a number of webinars and calls is that culturally we've shifted our time, which is my wrap-up signal here. We used to have meetings on the hour, and we always do, and then we ran to the end of the hour. But with Zoom, you're booking every hour. So we're trying to be better about stopping on the 50 and maybe starting a few minutes late and giving some grace to people. So I want to thank both you and Jeff for all of your time today. I know the audience still has questions. This is all great information. And of course, we're recording this and we'll send it out afterwards as well. As we close out today, want to remind y'all we cannot offer the great programs like this without our sponsors. Of course, thanks to Verizon for being the naming sponsor of all of our women influencing business events in 2020. Of course, LexisNexis Risk Solutions and Synovus are the sponsors of this particular leadership series over the last month. I hope you've enjoyed all 4 of our programs. I'd also like to personally thank all of the members of our Women Influencing Business Committee for their service and for being the thought leaders behind this virtual leadership series. I don't know what we would have done without their ability to kind of come up with some interesting topics and flex in this time. This year's committee is co-chaired by Frida Hardage at Northside Hospital and Ingrid Record with Bank of America. So thanks to them for all of their time. I especially want to thank everyone on this webinar on Blue Jeans today for joining us. Please mark your calendar for our Chamber's upcoming events. We do have our monthly What Was Our Luncheon, which of course has turned into our webinar event next Tuesday, September 29th. We're focusing on transportation and really that getting products, supply chain from our ports to our perimeter and figure out how we do all of that. For those of us who are not experts on transportation, it's a great one to tune into to kind of understand what's happening. The Chamber's annual Golf and Tennis Classic is the next Tuesday, presented by Northside Hospital on October 6th. And we are sold out of golf foursomes. However, we still have tennis spots available. So please join us to play tennis, and we will see you out there on October 6th. Of course, you can find this webinar as well as many other events on the Chamber's website at gnfcc.com. Thank you again to Rachel and to Jeff for spending time with us today. I hope all of you have a great day, and we are adjourned.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks, Callie.